I think one of the scariest things to say as a man, I can say it now with a lot less fear than, a decade ago, but is I don't know how. And we don't know because God put us in a family for others to teach us. Our heart is to put this out there so men that are in their early 20s like you were when you guys stepped in and you pressed pause and you did this school, they would feel empowered and feel challenged to go, oh, wait, I'm actually worth slowing down and taking the time to grow. You're worth asking for help. You're worth saying, I don't know how to do this. Can someone teach me? And I've watched you guys lead so many men who come through these gates. You've taught them how to pray honest prayers. You've taught them how to not do life alone. And I love that this discipleship school, it's life on life. Like, truly, you might be behind a weed eater when you're here. You're going to be washing dishes. You're going to be doing life with us. And I mean, I've watched you, Jake, teach men how to use an axe for the first time. Come on. And because they didn't have a dad who ever taught them that. And just the empowerment that comes from doing something like that and having a man saying, you're worth like me teaching you how to do this. You're worth time. Yeah. And to me, that's the being formed in a family. All right, mighty men, I'm very excited to sit down and have this conversation with each of you. I have known each of you men for a long time. In fact, I met some of you when you were still boys, teenagers. Some of you were in your early 20s when I met, and I've known each of you over a decade. I watched you come here do our high school summer camps, and Jake, you came and did our school when you were 17. Chris, you were in your early 20s, and you guys came here and said yes to taking back your heart. You made a really brave choice to be known by God and allow him to know you. And I've watched you go from being boys to becoming men. You're husbands now, you're fathers now, and you are now leading men on the same well-worn path that you took years ago. And none of us have arrived. We are all in process, and we are all still being changed by a Father's unfailing love. And I've got to stand at each of your weddings too. And me and Melissa got to marry each of you guys and be a part of those days. So I just want us to talk about what it's looked like to make this deliberate choice to be men that live from their hearts, to be a man like David, that he's known as a man after God's heart. We say a lot at the school, that Augustine quote, that how can you draw close to God when you're far from your own self? So I believe David was a man after God's heart because he made the brave choice to actually know his heart and to discover what was actually going on in there, the emotions, the feelings, the fears, the shame. And if you read the Psalms, like every emotion David poured out to God. And David dared to know his own heart, and then he said, God, I want you to know my heart, and I want to know your heart. And I've watched each of you guys make those brave choices to dare to find out what's going on in here, and also to be men who dare to live vulnerably. And so I want to throw the first question out on the table, and then we'll see where this takes us. But the question is, looking back, why was it worth making the choice to recover your own heart? Why was it worth making the choice to be a man that lives from your heart? So there's the first question, and let's see where this takes us.
For sure. I was thinking about that for me, like prior to going back into my heart or trying to take that ground, for me as a man, what felt the most validating was just my performance. Like I came here right after college, and whether it was in school or in church, it felt like the only way to get or to feel powerful was only through like what I could do. So if that's leading worship or that's excelling
Yeah.
or being in the honors college or whatever. It was like only achievement. And I think prior to that, I felt like there was just like this gaping hole in me, because it was like I was getting recognition or I was getting opportunities to be promoted, but I felt like I'm like, these people don't know what they're giving me.
Wow.
Like, I need to be tested. I need to like be faithful. I need like training.
Yeah.
But if I'm good or I have talent, then it's like, you're our guy. You're the one. We believe in you. And I think in looking back, that's an incredible pressure. Like, that's an incredible like tightrope to be like, well, I better bring it.
Wow.
But I don't even know what I'm bringing necessarily. Like, these are just gifts I've been given. I think I remember during my 18-ish journey learning that I wasn't my gift. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, how am I not my gift? Like, this is what I do. This is how I'm known. And to be like, yeah, like I do the thing, people applaud, I feel good. And then I go home and to be like, there's more. I think that's where it was like, oh, okay, cool. I've always thought that.
Yeah.
I've always thought there's more, because I think in hindsight, like, I guess to answer the question, like, what's made it worth it? I think for me to just be like, oh, like, more than just me performing, like, I can even hear now, like, oh, I was just lonely. Like, I just wanted to be together. Like, I wanted to be with other men, or like just be part of the team. You know, like, I want that like locker room moment, and realize that's important. Like, I need this. But I was feeling really isolated, and like, I better like, I'm good at stuff. People are giving me opportunities, but it's becoming more of a trap. It's becoming more like claustrophobic, and I don't know why. So I think that's been some of the journey of taking my heart back and being like, oh, this whole area of me is unaddressed. No one's, I don't know what to do with this. I know what to do with the action. I know what to do with, you know, getting, quote unquote, getting things done. But to like pay attention to this garden, to pay attention to like, you know, more in between moments of life, felt unaddressed up until that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
Wow.
I was thinking for me, just the word that just stands out so much is the word worth. Like, why was it worth it?
Yeah.
But so much of even my experience of discipleship and what God has done in my heart over the past decade, but especially in the past decade of being on this trajectory with Jesus, has been so much about worth. Like, so much of what I even began to see the Lord reclaim in me when I began to embrace this journey fully was worth and value. We've talked about this, Johnny, but I remember one of our earliest conversations that we had when I was 24 years old.
My gosh.
Was
crazy.
about worth, and you just sharing this picture that you saw of me, my heart discounted on a clearance aisle.
Yep.
Hidden among the discounted and damaged goods with just the very small price.
Yep.
And just the Lord peeling back these price tags and seeing that, oh, whoa, oh my gosh, that was the original price. Wait, there's another sticker.
Wow.
Oh, and the numbers just get bigger and bigger, because underneath all of that, all the messages of life and the things and the lies that have come at me, the lies I've taken in my life and been like, yes, that is true. I am what I do. And underneath all of that, my heart is priceless to the Lord.
Wow.
But it was such a journey to get to a place where that I had become, like, the journey of from birth to this discounted version of myself was a lot of pain.
Yes.
And also beautiful things and memories that I treasure, and also places that were painful to look at. And so much of this journey for me, I just can't imagine now to stand here. I can't imagine not saying yes to God, continually peeling back those price tags.
Yeah.
Because it's opened my eyes to how much God is pursuing me.
Yeah.
And it's given me more vision to see others the way he sees, because
Wow.
I've felt and I've experienced and I've believed him. And then I felt the reward of that faith grow to believe that I'm worth so much more than I ever dared
Yes.
And so much of the enemy's tactic in our stories, in my story, as I can look back at the men who came before me, and I'm like, oh, I know more than ever. That's been, the enemy's been working that angle for a really long time.
Yeah.
Discount.
Yeah.
Worthless. Diminish,
Yeah.
diminish. I just can't even imagine moving forward with that type of thing. Now that I am even in the position here where I look and I see my own sons, and I want more than ever for them to know how priceless they are to the Lord.
Yes.
Wow.
But that journey has had to happen in me first, or I'd have nothing to give them, nothing to even open up for them, or to say, these are the lies that the enemy has targeted every Miller man that has come before.
Wow.
This is where we're taking a different stand. So the recovery of my heart has been just the great expansive recovery of how much God loves me. And it never ends. But it's like there are some places where I'm like, I've only just begun to believe.
Yeah.
But it's also the discomfort, having to embrace the discomfort, because some of those things are the things it's just innate to my humanity to want to avoid.
Wow.
Like my pride, to believe I'm worth God's love on my best day and on my worst day, and especially everywhere in between. It continues to require so much humility.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that really simply, just realizing I had something to recover.
Yeah.
I think has been a pretty major first step, because I even had the luxury of being 17, coming to do the school. So I hadn't, you could look at that and be like, there's not a lot of life lived, but in my case, there has been a lot. There was a lot of life lived.
Yes.
So there is like the irony of the youth, like the gift of being so young.
Yeah.
The gift of being a youth coming to a place that's like, wait a second, what is this?
Yeah.
Like what do you mean, my heart? And so I just think simply the worth has been like incremental. When I hit moments of like, I don't value this part of me.
Yeah. Sobering.
It's sobering.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I haven't always, like, I think I'm discovering the parts of my heart that are still not recovered.
Yeah.
And I think that first step of knowing there was something to recover was essential. It was like the faith moment. Like, okay, we could go somewhere.
Yeah.
And then as time went by, as commitment stayed, as like invitation to stay was present, I was faced with more things to face. Honestly, just like, will I confront this thing? Will I own up to this?
Yeah.
Will I accept this?
Yeah.
And I think with each of those conflicts in my own heart, in my own soul, with each of you, I've like the value has gone up, because I think just I won't even call it reward. I guess it's reward, but just what has happened.
Yeah.
Like what it has borne in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Like 14 years later. So I think looking back, the worth is that I had something to recover, and it's been good. It's been irreplaceable.
Yeah.
I think.
Come on.
Even to your point, Chris, of like children. I'm like, having kids, what the
Golly.
heck? Like, just, I mean, Jed's 5. So 5 years ago, I was faced with another place of like, this is worth it.
Yes.
I cannot stay Jake at the age 26.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I want this little boy to have anything in life, like go beyond me, which, yes, let it be, Lord. But I think that those are the moments, like getting married, and just going on a date, getting married, like staying. Those are the moment, like just moments of realizing my commitment to recover my heart has placed, like you're saying, like the accurate price tag of value. Just made it worthwhile.
Come on.
And
Wow.
I mean, we're like over a decade now into each of your stories that I've known you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know it was worth it when you guys pressed that radical pause and you got off the conveyor belt of all the pressure systems of the world. Yeah. And you said, I'm going to step into the woods of Sophia for a few months and like take care of my heart.
Yeah.
Or the Proverbs 4:23, I'm going to guard my heart with all diligence because this is the wellspring of life. Everything from life comes from here.
Yeah.
But you guys like did like a radical resistance by pressing pause in each of your stories.
Yeah. It's true.
And like now their ripple effects are hitting me and hitting the world and children and marriages and families.
Yeah.
But when you press that pause button, like it felt like a pretty small step, but it was like a major turning point.
It was.
And I was thinking the other day, I remember this moment in 8th grade where we had this teacher come in, it's like special guest counselor teacher came in, and she's like, okay, I want everyone, you need to start thinking about what do you want to be and what do you want to do? Not what do you want to be, but what do you want to do? Because you need to start choosing your career path now. High school starts next year.
Grade.
No pressure.
And then you're going to be in college, and we need, and it was this, like you need to start deciding what your career path's going to be and what do you want to do with your life. And I remember my heart's beating right now just thinking back to that moment.
I don't know what I want to do right now.
That pressure system just coming on, especially as a man.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
Even the way we introduce ourselves is like, hey, I'm Bob, I'm a plumber. Hey, I'm Rick, I'm a builder.
This is my identity.
Introduce our function almost before our actually who we are. Because so much of the pressure system of the world we live in is what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
And I think that we're asking the wrong question first. The first question needs to be, who am I?
Yeah.
Like down here, as I begin to rip off all these labels and all these lies and all this pressure, like discover who has God made me to be.
Yes.
And then our doing comes out of our being.
Yeah.
And I watched you guys like press pause and step away for a moment and like begin to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And do the hard work of like letting the Holy Spirit begin to peel the labels back and reveal who am I outside of my gifting. Like who am I? So if a guy's watching this, he's seeing 18-inch journey post or our retreat post, and it can be easy to like, we have a lot of our posts have like the creative arts that we go after and all the good meals we're eating. Why is it worth a man pressing pause and coming to do a retreat or coming to do a school? Like even if it's not our school, but why is it worth like pressing pause as a man and taking a moment to step off the conveyor belt of the pressure systems of life and like find out what's going on in here, just for other men to hear, like why is that worth specifically pressing pause?
I love that picture too,
because I can like I have moments like just even this week where I'm like, it would be easier to be grumpy dad versus being vulnerable dad. And I can hide from my kids by just being grumpy, or I got a lot of work to do, rather than like being, okay, dad's tired and this is kind of what's going on in my heart, and I want to move close to you. Like, and just making that choice this week, I can look back at a moment with my son Cadence where I dared to like press pause and not conform to what fear wanted me to do and what shame was leading me down. And I'm like, actually, I'm going to be a man right now that like does what's in his heart.
Yes. Come on.
So
I love that question. I think that we already press pause to do a lot of things.
Yeah,
like,
wow.
We pause prayer to watch TV or like sleep in.
Sure.
We pause purity for sin.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's like, if we can realize we're already pausing things in our life, but secret things, a lot of times are things that nobody knows about or that are easier to like explain away. I think if we can accept that's actually kind of subconsciously a practice that we're doing.
Yeah.
Pausing for 2 days or 4 days, or I know 2 months can seem like a big deal, but if we all live to be 90, hopefully at least like 2 months, there's like 3 years of things you'll forget about at least. Like 2 months is
good.
It's nothing.
So fast.
Yeah. So I just think that you're already pausing things in your life for better or worse. To use that word in the question, I just don't think you have anything to lose. Like, what the thing you're gonna miss out on for a weekend retreat, like I think it's really confronting when we decide like, but what about that one thing? It's not worth it. Like, we're letting that one thing maybe control not our destiny, but like an opportunity for something, like, and an opportunity to value. Yeah. Like, am I worth not working an extra shift to, I don't know, save up for that car or a down payment for a house to go to this weekend thing? Yeah. And I mean, I love these guys. I listen to their music, I watch their YouTube videos, but I can't get there. It's like, I think with that word pause, if we realize we already pause a lot, we hit stop a lot. But what things are we pausing? And can we
That's really good.
employ that for something that will be beneficial, like the 18-inch journey retreat or the 18-inch journey? I'm like, I paused. I came right out of high school, so my life was already in a pretty weird transitional moment. But golly, the things that I would have not come to the school for, they pale in comparison to what I've received.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think
Yeah.
of like the rich young ruler could have been the 13th disciple.
Yeah.
Like he could, we might actually, his name might not be the rich young ruler. He might be this name that we're talking about that did extraordinary things with Jesus.
That's true.
And like, even like we've been watching the Chosen series.
Yes.
And like, the moment like when Jesus calls Matthew the tax collector, you're like, why would he want to stay in that tax booth? Like, go follow Jesus and discover adventure beyond what you could ever ask or imagine. Like, but that rich young ruler, like Jesus, like, hey, come follow me.
Yes.
And he couldn't leave his status. He couldn't leave his power to follow this adventure that was beckoning him. Yeah.
For me, I just keep thinking like around the time I hit pause, I feel like there's kind of some crucial things going on in my heart where I'm trying to think how to put it into words, but it's like there's almost like this hopelessness or this discouragement. Like, this is as good as life gets. Yeah. And I think one thing I was thinking about, even with the word pause, is like there's like a speed to life and how fast things move. And I think something I've wrestled with, I still wrestle with this, but hitting pause is like this feeling of like I'm behind or I'm missing out. Right. Or I need to be somewhere.
I think a lot of people feel that.
And I think there can be a darkness to that, because like having kids, like they just play. Like life is beautiful. And I think at that kind of juncture, like 22, 23, 24, I could feel this like darkness wanting to be like, bro, this is as good as it gets. This is what you have to live for. and just kind of like, I don't know, almost like choose your own adventure, but kind of feeling like, you know, get your wife, get your 2.5 kids, like get your white picket fence, like this is your trajectory, you know, and to feel this kind of propulsion. And I think to answer your question, Johnny, to like what has made it worth it? Why was it worth it? Was to like discover things I didn't know. I mean, even thinking about your 8th grade teacher, I'm like, for me, the like tragedy of that question is like, I feel, or what feels at stake for me is like, I feel open to a lot of things. Yeah. I like discovering life. I like music. I like science. I like sports. I'm like, and I feel like with so many of like those types of questions or that sort of motivation, it's like, well, what's your path? Oh, you're a musician. Well, now you can't be an athlete, or like, oh, you're an athlete, so you must not be able to appreciate it. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, I will sort of compartmentalize.
Wow.
And so I think, kind of back to your question, it's like to be at that juncture and kind of feel like these parts of me are starting to atrophy. Like, well, I guess there's nothing to look forward to. I guess there's nothing. I guess I'll settle into this rhythm. I guess I'll make money. I guess I'll become successful, and kind of lose like, oh, I'm excited for today. I'm excited for what I'll discover, or even the like the father-son dynamic in my relationship with the Lord, to think he might have something planned that I don't know about. It's like mind blowing, but to think like, no, I know what's going to happen, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to clock in and feel sort of this almost like assembly line lifestyle that's like, yep. And anyway, I just thought of that. I was like, I hadn't thought about it for a while, but just this, like, I'm going to lose this. Like, I'm not excited. I'm not a passionate man. You know, maybe I'm faithful, but I'm not, there's like, I don't, almost like my blood loses its color a little bit. Like, I'm just right here. I'm a nice man, you know, but to lose like, oh, I'm passionate for this.
I'm a nice man.
But I feel that where it's like hitting pause to be like, oh, like I'm coming alive. I don't even know what this is. Like, this feels mysterious. Like God is blowing my mind. I'm like, every day is an adventure. Like, whoa, have you heard this? Like, to feel this sense of like appetite and hunger and longing, and be like, I think that, and I think that's scary. Like, I think even there's a fear of disappointment. Like, what if I'm disappointed again? Like, what if it's not as good as I had hoped for? So I think that's some of the, like, what's coming to mind with hitting pause. Because I think for me, and I would argue for a lot of men, it's easier to just zone out. Like, let's get busy. Let's stay safe. Let's do sports.
Right.
And it's busy, and in some ways it's efficient, but it's not dynamic. And in a lot of ways, you're losing the heartbeat. You're losing the sense of like your signature, your voice, or your like, oh, this is what I live for. And it's like, you're effective, you make money, like it's almost like a machine. So hitting that like pause, even like kind of hitting that pause on the assembly line. Yeah. Because it's not even that all those things are necessarily evil. Yeah. It's just when it's like sort of funneled and that's it, and you're losing like the dynamic of like, oh, you know, I'm really passionate about this other thing that, you know, and even just to tie it back to the kids, like to learn like, man, I can't give my kids what I don't have. So it's like, I can't go over here and put my heart through the assembly line of being efficient and effective and not bring them with me. Like, and that's terrifying to be like, oh, I don't. Yeah. Okay. That woke me up to be like, all right. Yeah. What I would want for my kids, I have to get it for myself first. And if I'm saying yes to this efficiency and I'm losing touch with my heart, they're coming right behind me. And that woke me up to be like, okay, don't want that for them. Yes. So that's a motivation to do the work for me. Like, okay, again, honoring these forces. And obviously I wasn't a father when I came here, but kind of putting some reflection on there of being like, okay, that's what made pausing worth it, because there were forces in my life that were strongly motivating that I don't want to continue with my kids or want to, you know. And I love what you were saying about recovery, or just even understanding there's something to recover. It's like, oh, okay, everything's not cool. Everything is not fine. We're in the middle of something. And to have that like awareness of like, oh, okay, like I think awareness was like a huge key of the pause. And
yes.
Like, that's good. Even what you were saying with pain, like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. Like this movement,
and it's there.
It's there. Yeah, it's there. And I think to be like, oh, it's already there. It's not like, oh, I started doing heart work and it got bad. It's like, no, I'm just tapping in.
So good.
But then to feel like, oh, because I think that would just be what I would love to conclude with, is like, what's worth it with pausing is realizing it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
There is more.
There's another way.
There's more to my relationship with the Father. There's more to my relationship with other men.
Yes.
And I think that's what's made it worth it, to be like, oh, because I mean, we're over here kind of reflecting on 10 years where the perspective is good, but to be like, oh, okay, like that pain or that sacrifice or that work, facing that,
Yeah.
there is honor in that. There is a worth. There is a, like, the Father bringing restoration. And so to hit pause and not just like numb out and just stay busy, it feels like worth it with whatever school it is, whatever, just to say like those careers will be there.
Yeah.
That money will be there. That provision will be there. God can do stuff really fast. The stuff in our heart is where the time takes a lot.
So good, JD. I think there's just a place too. I feel the more you're sharing, JD, my heart, I feel my heart racing, because it's like we've just been sold a bill of goods.
Yeah.
Like, if we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, like, when else in life, like, what if, like, do we know, like, and do we as men know that we have permission to find out that our heart has a voice and it's been trying to speak to us since the day we were born.
Yeah.
And if we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, when do we engage that permission?
Well,
do we ever do? So, I mean, I feel like a tragedy is that so many of us never engage the permission to find out that the heart has a voice, and that someone else came in and set up tables and started selling things inside of the temple of who we are.
Wow.
When do we move against this? Just the garbage of that, and say, Jesus, come in and turn the tables. Because even like with the messages, and some of it's just straight up cultural,
right?
And it can be family strongholds, but some of it's what we've grown up in. It's what's been perpetuated through our media, everything we've taken in to perpetuate this thing that's like, if you stop, you will lose hope. You're done. Like, if you don't break into that industry by this age, it's over.
It's over.
You either pop like Justin Bieber by this age, or every child star, or that's it. Like, you have a very short. There's this expiration date, and then you just got to throw out the milk. It's done. And I think one of the most beautiful and shocking things about what we've been doing, what we keep saying yes to, and what we see in men and women who dare to say, what would happen if I press pause, is them finding out, my heart's been trying to talk to me all of this time, and I didn't even know. The things I thought I was just supposed to do, the things I thought I was supposed to be, the timeline in which I was supposed to get there wasn't even real. It was an illusion. Someone came in, set up some 6 feet plastic folding tables, set up their merchandise, and said, this is the way that you get all of the things that you've ever desired. It's just a farce. And so I feel like my heart is just, what if you just dared to engage the pause button at all? Because I don't even think what we're told, I think, is that there is no pause button. There is no pause button. And it's just play and go, and then you'll rest when you're done. When it's all said and done, you accomplish that. And that's the world. That's the message of the world. That's not the kingdom. And so Jesus is, I do believe Jesus, for every one of us, he's knocking on that door, and he wants to come in and flip those tables over. And show us what the kingdom really feels like. Wow. There's so much space in the temple. There's permission for me to long for, love, go after, pursue, look at the things that I just would never dare to do, because it might throw me off of some sort of rat race I'm on. This road, this super highway to the acceptance that'll finally make me feel affirmed, or the thing. But what I'm really longing for is to know I'm beloved. What I'm really longing for is to know that God delights in me. And that's not an old message for me. Like, that it's increasing, if that makes sense. And so I think I long for men to dare to even just try to see what happens if they would just pause and say, God, what are you saying to me? How have you been coming to me every day of my life? Where have I missed you? because I was afraid I'd fall off the map and that would be it, or I'd lose this trajectory. I mean, even some of my favorite dreams have been the ones where the Lord comes to me, like in dreams when I'm sleeping, and brings something back to my remembrance in a dream from a long time ago and shows me that he still wants to meet me in that kind of place. Like I remember I had a season where I felt like I had lost momentum with my songwriting and with music, just one thing that I cultivate. And the Lord came to me in a dream and showed me that he had actually, this is funny, I wasn't thinking about the connection, but he had set up a table in the middle of an airport terminal in hopes that in my busyness, I would pass the table, find him, and he could give me all of this new music, all of these new songs.
Wow.
Because he just wanted to, he was just, I feel like that's part where the Lord is coming to us, even in our youth and all through our lives, to be like, I will set myself, I will stand in the middle of the highway with signs and billboards to get your attention.
Yeah.
If you'll slow down and take it in. But it's risky.
Yeah.
It's risky to dare to say, if I'm worth this. I have permission to engage the voice of my heart. And I feel compassion for that too, because so much of what's been fed to us is like, no, get in there, get it done, make something of yourself. And then the tension of all that is most of us weren't fathered to do that. Like we weren't even taught how to do that in the first place. So this illusion that we're just going to magically tap into it can be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like the way of Jesus it's so radical. It's such radical resistance to the system of the world.
Yes.
The way of Jesus is upside down success compared to the way the world sees success.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about how his whole 20s we know nothing about. And he's given like the most important assignment a man's ever been given to save humanity. And like, I mean, I would have definitely been starting, but at least by like 20 years old, like this is a big, and he's taking
get that following going.
He's taking 30 years to become. And the only thing we know is that he's growing in wisdom and favor with God and man.
Yeah.
He's growing. Like the Son of God took time to grow. And then he has the baptism in the Jordan moment, and the Father says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." And for me, that's like right when I would have launched my ministry. Like I would have been, been selling DVDs at the moment and publishing T-shirts, and he presses pause again.
Yeah. Oh,
like
man.
he comes out and we're like, it's the Son of God. And then all of a sudden he's gone for 40 days in the wilderness. And then you see him all throughout his ministry slipping away over and over and over again. Wow. And then the moment he releases his disciples to go and do ministry, they come back. I love that moment. They come back and they're like, Jesus, you won't believe it. Like this stuff was happening. And he says, don't rejoice in this. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Don't rejoice in successful ministry. Rejoice that you're known by the Father.
Turning the table upside down.
And I think, that it's just so easy as men to hide behind those fig leaves of our performance and what I do and my gifting. It's the risky way to live life.
Yeah.
But it's where full life is found.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of reassuring to know it's in the Bible and not just in our day and age.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I was just thinking like with what you were saying, I just felt like, again, another wave of humility to be like, okay, this is Jesus's model.
Yeah.
Because I think it moves against a lot of my thinking. It's like, man, we got to get after it. Like we got to be effective. We got to get numbers.
Quick.
It's got to be big. It's got to be, and to hear like the humility of like Jesus to be like, and I'm going to rest. I'm going to come over here and we're going to do this. And like, obviously so many scriptures that are like easy to miss, like the widow's mite, like it wasn't, Jesus is like, notice that. And it's like, I don't know, it just feels like it validates some of the humanity. Cause I know for me, like in the journey of going after my heart or like doing this work, it can be like, now what are we doing again? Now what is it? Because I can't be like, look, I've made this. Look at my my thing. It's all like in here. Now the people that count will know. Like my wife will know if I'm doing the work. But like, I don't have a thing I can boast in. I don't have like a trophy that I can be like, hey, I did this. But then to hear Jesus, it's like it convicts that place in me that wants that trophy, that wants that, like, look how good I'm doing. But to feel the path, I think with what you were saying, I just felt that like there's like and it's not new. It's not a new path. I mean, even Jesus in the wilderness, he's tempted to do his mission faster.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
And I think that thing with speed, it does feel like such a key of like, even back to your question about pausing, it's like, I think as men I'll speak for myself, like I think I'm always looking for a shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like whether I want it or not, like I can compare myself to other men and be like, wow, there's so much further ahead than me. I just need something to catch up. And some of the most validating work for me is to realize like, oh, it's hard for everybody. Like no one
escape that.
Like no one has a shortcut. And a moment for me comes to mind is like, I remember I was broken up with my girlfriend at the time, and I really, really wanted to get married. Like bad, and like people that I thought, guys that were like younger than me were getting married and engaged, and I was like, man, this is not fair, Lord. But I felt like the Lord didn't even like correct me. He wasn't like, yes, it's fair. No, he was like, it's like he got in my face and he's like, I'm taking you seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If there was a faster way, we would be taking it. He's like, I have you on the fastest track. And it like sobered me of like, oh, there's not a way around this. There's things in me that if I want to become a husband, I have to look at this.
Yes.
And it sucks. Like, this is not the JD that's like impressive or good to look at or handsome or smells good. But I feel like the Lord is like, I'm committed to that. And it just kind of messed with my like perception of speed and time, where he's like, bro, this is the fastest track. But it is the stealing away, and no one's watching, and there is no audience, and I'm not getting any accolades, and it's quiet, and it's like, is this working? But to feel the Lord be like, I'm honoring you.
Yeah.
I'm pursuing you. You're not, my prayers aren't hitting on deaf ears. He's like, no, this is the path. And I think that's like the wrestle. Again, that was like 12 years ago or something like that. Obviously I'm married now, I have kids, and it's like he was faithful, but it's still that thing in me that's like, I want this to go faster than it's going. But to realize like, no, this is the speed. This is, and even when you're saying that thing with Jesus and it's like, well, he waited till he was 30. It's like, it kind of makes me like get stressed. I'm like, come on, Jesus, we got to get to it. But I think that as men is, I don't know, I just feel that like that, like anxiousness, that anxious energy, that the Lord is like, hey, I got you. Like, there's time. We can figure this out.
Yeah.
We can, because I think the other thing I was just thinking is like, for me, even when we're talking about careers and music and different things, it's like fear can be a great motivator. Like anxiety can actually be the thing that's like, come on, like it can actually be very productive. And I think just to feel where the Lord's like, hey, we don't have to do it this way. We don't have to rush. Like we can actually slow down. And I mean, I feel that every day. I'm like, all right. And it's like, I just feel them like, hey, like, just give me your fear. Yeah. And again, whether it's fear about, I won't have a wife, like I won't get married. And I'm like, come on, God. And he's like, hey, I got you. Like, cause even when he told me that, it wasn't like there was a woman in the picture. It was like, I'm like out here alone. And I'd be like, I got you. Like, I hear that. And to feel that, but then even if it's like every day, like, Lord, where's my next meal going to come from? Or like, are we going to have enough money to cover bills? And it'd be like that's for me to carry. And it's like, oh, that's the like inner work of like, because it's not that, my kids don't need to eat or we don't need food, but it's like, am I grabbing onto that control, or am I receiving like what he's providing?
That's good.
And that's the work of like, either I'm getting it done through fear, I'm getting it done as a son. Yeah. And there's like a grace and there's an ease, or it's like, nope, it's back to what I shared earlier. It's all up to me. Yeah. I'm really awesome. But if I one slip up, and it's a house of cards, it's all coming down, it'd be like, actually, it's not a house of cards. It's not even built on me. Right. It's not all up to me. Like it's the slow progress. But that really is confronting to that, like, I need it now. I need it yesterday.
But I feel the significance to the honesty you're talking about. Like, and I think that's something I'm feeling throughout this thread is there was also the you daring to get honest with the Lord feels like it was a crucial moment to even say, Lord, I'm here, but I want to be here.
Wow.
And then encountering the voice of the Lord, and then for you to tell it back, and still there's still a tone. I was surprised by the Lord's tone. Because I feel like we could honestly circle around that theme for a moment. Even what is the significance of actually, even with the pause button?
Yeah.
What is the significance of us stopping to get honest?
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
ourselves,
Yeah.
with the Lord, and then encountering like the actual voice of the Father, who has known us since our soul was a seed, who had and has and will have plans for us to prosper us, but they're not the shortcut,
Right.
cheat code, video game method to get what we want.
Yes.
Which, I mean, obviously is such a, it's, what's the word for that? It's, it just flies in the face of our control, I guess, is ultimately the thing.
Yeah.
But what would be the significance of us getting honest? Like, why is that so significant? Because I've even been thinking about conversations we've had this year where we're talking even about someone in the Bible, like Job. I think one of my favorite moments in the Bible right now is the moment at the end of Job, which is some people are like, oh no, I don't,
Job.
please, not that book. but you know, right before the Psalms. But one of my favorite moments is when God and Job are in dialogue at the end of Job, and God is talking even to Job's friends and then talking to Job, and he's like, my friend Job, he's honest with me.
Wow.
And he's honest about me.
Whoa.
And it is such a mic drop of the Old Testament, as the Lord's like, you know what I love? And we were talking about David earlier. But you know what I love? That Job is honest with me and he's honest about me. Do you guys feel like that is also a part of what we're talking about when we say the pause button, like daring to pause? Because that feels really significant in what you're saying. Because you're like, I was in a season and it wasn't going like I wanted it to. And I had ideals, I had dreams, I had desires. But when I actually told the Lord, it made space for him to actually respond to where I was, not where I wanted to project that I was. So what is even that? What's that tension with just being honest with where our hearts are actually at and talking to the Lord that way?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think of the word posing. Like how quickly I want to pose is something I'm actually not. I can think back. This is a vulnerable moment, but I remember at this golf tournament one time, I chose to lie about a score that I had.
Wow.
And like the Holy Spirit brought back that moment, and it was like, and when the Holy Spirit goes back into your story, he's not going back to condemn, he's going back to heal those layers. And it was like one of those moments I remember after I did it, like it felt good because I scored higher in the tournament than I ever had. But then like going home and that feeling of like, man, like I just lied. I'm pretending to be something I'm actually not.
Yeah.
And feeling really convicted as a kid after doing it. But then just like the Holy Spirit brought back that moment to me as a man, you know, that was like couple decades ago. And I'm like, wow, what a pattern that I can still play out now. Pretending to be something that I'm actually not, and how exhausting that life is. I mean, so many students, I think, that do our school, we ask this question at the beginning of our school, how many of you are here because you're burned out? I feel like, I mean, and you see like kids in their early 20s, like, I'm like, you're too young to be burned out. And I'm like, but we live with these phones in this world of posing all the time. This is what my vacation like. This is what my, my day off was like. This is what my omelet was like this morning. This is what my latte was like. We are painting this picture of this person that we actually aren't. And it's exhausting to live that way.
Yes,
And how exhausting it is to live that way with the Lord. Like coming to the Lord, like wearing these masks of, this is who I am, God. But deep down, I'm angry with God. I'm sad that he hasn't answered some of those prayers yet. I'm disappointed. You know, I'm afraid that he's not going to show up and have a wife for me. I'm afraid he's not going to show up, and everybody else is going to find their calling, but I'm not.
Yes.
You know, everybody else hears God, but I don't hear God.
Yes.
And like actually daring to be honest with God is, I think that's the yoke that Jesus offered us, the way of life.
Come on.
That when we dare to be honest and say, this is what I actually scored on that hole, Lord. Like you saw those few duff shots that I hit. It's freeing because suddenly I'm not doing it by myself anymore. Like I'm with the Father and I'm not carrying around these heavy masks.
I think to that, it's hard for me to be honest with someone I'm not with. Like when I'm not acknowledging God's presence or engaging time with him, like how can you be honest? How can I be honest with someone in this scenario with God that if I'm not giving him time, making space for him? And I think some of the shortcut stuff, like I think to circle back around, I want shortcuts the most when I'm alone.
Wow.
Yes, that resonates.
For whatever reason. And even like integrity wise, I hate shortcuts because I just don't like shortcuts. Because I would definitely be in the camp of like, it should be harder to be more valuable or worthwhile. But I too dwell among those who would love a shortcut now and again. But I'm like, even thinking about it, sitting here, I'm like, I take shortcuts when I'm alone. Like when we're working and I'm with the guys, there's like the accountability of Ike will see me cheat that, or Trevor what will that say? Like what will I allow to be okay, or a standard or a value? So there's the accountability of I'm not alone. And that helps me with not taking shortcuts, but I need people in my life to be honest. I think that's a part of the equation for me. And I can be honest with myself, and I can play the like, well, God knows card, because God knows everything. You know, he sees everything. I can't escape his presence, which is true, and thank God that's true. But I think the partnership is like me speaking out loud. Me confessing. Saying like, hey, I'm afraid. Hey, I'm lonely. Or I'm like swarmed with anxiety. I can't shake this. Accepting it. And I think coming to the farm was one of the biggest moments of realizing like how alone I was. I think even at a young age, like I obviously living in community, doing the school, you have bunk buddies, and you know you're finding a moment to yourself is fewer and further between. But I think it painted the picture for me where I'm like, oh man, I was very alone, and it made sense why I felt a lot of the ways I did. Because I could be around people, but I'm not with them. You know, I'm not safe, or I'm not secure. There's no equity there. But coming and discovering that those things are available, like safety with friends, with brothers, the equity of like we're all for each other. Rabbit trail, but I think just being back to the posing and with God, like I need to be with God to be honest
Yeah.
with God.
Good. Yeah.
Just simply, and
Yeah.
when I hide from God, I want shortcuts to God ultimately.
Yeah.
But He's there already.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think too, like so much of the way Jesus did discipleship and with the 15 years of the discipleship school that you guys have done and now we're a part of, and we kind of do every year as well.
Every year.
I tell people I've done the 18-inch journey 15 times.
Sure.
Every year when school rolls around, I'm nervous too, not just the students, because I know like I can't give what I don't have, and I can't lead these students somewhere I haven't been. And each year, especially as we lead the men of the school, I know like, all right, I'm going to excavate another layer of my heart. I mean, even that question that the Holy Spirit just asked me and brought back that memory of lying as a teenager. Like he just asked me that like 2 years ago, because he's like, I want to go deeper into who you are as a man and the places you feel like a fraud. Like I want to uncover that. And I want to replace it with who I say you are. I want to rip back that price tag and go back to your original value. But each year we do the school, I know, like I'm about to get excavated again. But it's worth it. Like we're at the end of another school. And like I saw each of you step into a new place of who the Father made you to be, as a leader, as a husband, as a father, as friends. And again, you haven't arrived. I haven't arrived. But one of the ways that I believe Jesus showed discipleship is he said, this phrase that we've said a lot is we're found by a father and we're formed in a family. You're talking about like honesty, like when you got the pressure of brothers around you, it pulls the honesty out of you. And just I'd love to talk about for a minute, like what does discipleship look like for us in that value of found by a father, formed in a family. And I'm thinking about, because each year you guys are each leading, one or two men, because that's a huge part of our discipleship program, is that you're not a number at our school, and we don't have thousands come on this land. It's about a few. And like you get, the men that you were leading, so like you were in their stories, you were in, like you knew them. I mean, multiple one-on-ones, where you're loving them, you're fighting for them, you're going after who they are. And in that beautiful pressure system, they're being formed and changed. And I can watch the moments where those students came posing and then they finally like broke down and got honest. And then transformation was like instant. Like as soon as they got honest, transformation started happening. But I'm just wondering, like for us to keep this conversation going, if we talked a little bit about like what does that value mean to us to be found by a father but formed in a family, and what you're talking about, like the pressure of like it's all up to me and I'm all alone in this. Actually, I'm not. Like there's a brotherhood waiting to fight with me and to encourage me and to bear my burdens with me.
Come on.
But what does that mean to you guys, found by a father, formed in a family?
That's a good question. I think kind of off the cuff, like it's easy to say like I love God, and then what comes to mind is like my hands raised in worship, or I like spend a quiet time by myself. It's a lot more tricky to be like I love people or I'm loved by people, and to understand that God is in people. I think it's like in 1 John, it's like who says he loves God but hates his brother. And so there's this like relational aspect of God that's like Jesus is in each one of us. And so I think like seeing the image of God, seeing like the person of God in each other and seeing it in myself. Because even I was thinking about a couple of things. I think knowing that like I need people it is a new thought. Like I don't think in my like Christian or like spiritual upbringing that was like as equal to like, oh, I need God, or I need grace, or I need these things.
Need to read your Bible.
You need to read your Bible. Like these very spiritual things that are very beautiful, and I'm not to diminish them at all.
Right.
But when it's like that's it, and it's like this whole aspect of like, well, what about like my relationship with my mom? What about my relationship with my siblings? What about how we work that out? Because I think being able to like just hear how we affect each other, because I've had conversations with you
Yeah.
Where even my own inner dialogue was more negative than what you said to me.
Yeah.
So I'm feeding off the encouragement of like, oh, I actually wouldn't have said that was true about myself
Praise
in this
God.
moment. Right. And to think, it's kind of like weird to say it, but it's like I needed that voice of God from you to me. Yeah. That my quiet time or like my worship time that is still beautiful didn't hit. Yeah. Or like moments with my wife. But I was also thinking like about a pretty significant moment for me where like I made a really big mistake at work. I mean, all of you guys were there. But to apologize and physically receive forgiveness, it's like that was different.
Yeah.
Than just being like, yeah, God's grace. Like, it's good. You need it. But to be like, I'm crying, y'all are crying, and I'm being forgiven. I'm like, something shifted. And I think there's like a human element to who God is that's like, I can't just get it right here in my head. I need this. Like, I need to be seen. Y'all need to, like, we need to be able to have that, like, relational aspect that, I don't know, even, like, it's way more wild. Like, there, even as I'm trying to describe it, it's like there isn't, like, this is how it works. Because it's live. It's real. Yeah. I think what comes to mind is, like, just the need for forgiveness. Like, I think this idea of like, because I think as I'm saying it, I'm like, again, just kind of speaking from my story, it's like, all right, how do I do this right? How do I do this excellent? And it's like, as a man, I can't do this so good that I avoid failing. And that can be, again, like a noose. That can be like, oh, just quit. Yeah. But to be like, actually, but what's more powerful than that is forgiveness. Or like, hey, I know, and okay, just to say it like this, I know that when I mess up, y'all won't leave.
Wow,
and
that's so good.
That is a confidence booster that, like, it doesn't, like, as a man, that strengthens me. It's like, if we're like pillars of a bridge, like, I'm now secure.
Yes.
Versus even what you were saying about the shortcuts. Like, when you're, I don't know, I feel like there has been seasons of my life where as a man, I'm just one pillar and I'm trying to like hold the weight, but it, out of balance. Like, it's not fair. I'm getting picked off. But to know that, like, found in a father, formed in a family, like, I'm formed by these mistakes and this working this out, that we're like, all right, I'm confident, like, y'all aren't going anywhere. I can't say I've always felt that way. Yeah. I can't say I've always felt that much permission or that safety. Yeah. Where I actually need to perform or I'm not safe. Yeah. If that would be like my story, but just to feel that, like, okay, there's been a formation that I see God in you, you see God in me. Yeah. And there's a conversation, there's a communion that's not just spiritual, but it's actually physical as well.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. I was thinking of just even I am found by a father. I am formed in a family. I like that it's even the language is very specific. It's not, I was found by a father and then I was formed in a family. And I'm done. It's still messing with that arrival mentality, which is that invitation to always be learning, because I'm constantly being formed. Yes. I am being transformed continually into the image of Christ. Like, the Imago Dei is still a part of my transformation. It will always be.
You're still becoming.
I'm still becoming. Yep. We are found by a father. We are formed in a family. When you were talking, JD, and to the question, I think in discipleship, it just feels like the gravity. Yeah. Because if I'm just spitballing spiritual sentiments on social media, I don't know how my words or actions are affecting other people. I don't feel the gravity of pain or hurt that I might cause, or the way if my cynicism or my pride or my judgment. But in community, like even in the community that we walk out, in the community of discipleship, in the community of believers, in the fellowship of brothers and sisters, I can't get away from gravity, which feels like God's continual gift to me. In marriage, because me and my wife have both said yes to this wild, narrow way, we can't avoid gravity. I mean, sure, maybe I can avoid it for a day, or try to, or fool myself into it, but the gravity is going to come back like a boomerang and knock me upside the head. Wow. I'm going to feel in community how my actions, how my beliefs, how the things I don't want to look at are affecting others. They're affecting my friendships. They're affecting my family. They're going to, if I'm in leadership, it's going to affect everything. That's one of my favorite things in discipleship is just the gift of gravity, if that makes sense. Yeah. Where I see, especially for young men to come in and they have ideas, but to actually walk that out, even to say like, yes, the gospel. But if they're not practicing the way, if we're not practicing the gospel, if it's not in action, there's just so little understanding of the gravity we impart or what our effect is on others. And I love watching, especially, I mean, all ages, but especially in the longer form discipleship that we've been leading for all this time. I love watching men kind of come to terms with like, oh Lord, I didn't know that I had that effect on people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I made women feel that way. Wow. I didn't know that I made men feel that way. Right. I didn't realize how much I was doing damage to myself because I was avoiding, I didn't realize how much my relationships had a really, really low ceiling because I avoid conflict like the plague. Yeah. So I think I was just thinking like that word gravity really stands out to me. Just feeling my weight in the world, like inviting others to come along that journey and be like, okay, this is the space I take up. Yeah. I affect people. And because I so many of us, even the way we did Christianity, even in our families or the way we did church, like for me, there were just moments in my life where it was far more of an event. And then we did the other stuff. And then we came back to the event. And then but to see that everything kind of works together. Yes. That God spoke. Yes. God established the law and order of these things. Because everything is in relationship to one another. Those would be some of my thoughts. Yeah, good. It is the sobriety though. Yeah. That I'm far more powerful than I'd like to admit. Yes. Like to invite young adults in and be like, do you know how powerful you are? Wow. And it actually takes, first it takes so much humility to embrace that. Yeah. That's another table flip if it's not like, yes, I am so powerful. And that's how I'm going to use these methods to get my way in life. That's not the gospel. No.
That's good. I to even speak to some of what you were saying, JD, is I need to know my mistakes are mistakes. Wow. And I don't think I get that educational experience alone. Yeah. It is if a tree falls in the woods, did it make a... it's like, it moved air. And when air moves, it makes a sound, So it's like when Jake makes a mistake alone, did Jake make a mistake? Wow. Yes, but if I stay alone making mistakes, the same mistake even, too long, it will become normal and I'll accept it as a viewpoint or like a worldview. Now you've been formed this is in a what's different way. Yeah. So I think like simply for me, I've needed to know my mistakes are mistakes and they affect you. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in discipleship, there needs to be the place of knowing like, hey, that thought is destructive. Yeah. Like I know you've befriended that. Wow. But it's the thing it's doing, like how it's playing out in your life. Like I just met you. Like we know each other for a week, but I can tell like the way you view women or the way you speak to women, it's not okay. And for us to be able to be formed like for that young man is like, hey, can I help you real quick? Like that's tough, buddy. Yeah. Like, can we make a plan? Yeah. I want to help you. So I think that dynamic of, again, it comes to not being alone, but just needing someone else to, kind of be not a metric, but like accountable. Yeah. And then the found in the Father, found by the Father, I think is like, to that I would speak. I made the choice. Yeah. I made a choice to do the application or like work hard to get some money or whatever. I didn't get myself here. I was found by God. And I I'm not that good at life. I'm not. Amen. I wish I was, but I'm not, and I'm glad I'm not almost, because I wouldn't have like imagined or dreamed what God has provided for me. I couldn't have come up with or done on my own, but there's still the participation of humility when y'all said that. Yeah. And the like, I'm gonna become humble and partner with God. Yeah. Because there's like living in the will of God is biblical. It's how Jesus taught us to pray. It's like, your will be done. Yeah. And so those are those two ways, I think, in discipleship. It's like, listen, you're amazing. You're wonderful. You are not why you're here. You know, like your exploits, your goodness isn't good enough to get you to this table, but God is. Mm-hmm. And now you get to be educated about yourself, not by yourself. So good. That's been one of my major, like,
so good,
man. I've needed you guys to learn about me.
I was gonna chime in too. Like, another word that comes to mind, even with what you're saying, is just advocacy. Like, I love that, because I think with discipleship, even to speak, it is like when you were saying, I do the journey every year. It's like there is this dual, like, I'm growing, and then there's people in front of me and there's people behind me that I'm leading. And I think there's like this humility of, like, because when you were even just like describing, like, seeing somebody and being like, that's not working, or like, hey, I need to speak into this. But I think there's this kind of understanding that, like, that is necessary. Yeah. Like, I need y'all. I need people to help me in my life. And I think specifically as men, it kind of goes back to something we were saying earlier. It's like, it's like where, I'm trying to think how to put words around this, but it can be this pressure to just know how to do stuff on our own. Right. Like, even with your golf score, I love that, like, picture, because I feel like we do it all the time. It's like, all right, why don't you go ahead and just be this great golfer and go here, and you're like, I'm by myself. Like, okay, shortcut. I'm doing it. And but to feel like that sense of the Lord, and then the Lord through people being like, hey, and I've heard you share this story, but your swing is wrong. And I think even as I say that, there can be this like shame of like, your swing is wrong. Oh, fix it. But feeling the, like, back to your question about honesty of, like, just sitting with the Lord and being like, all right, my swing is wrong. Help. And to have that moment where it's like, God is, in this metaphor, like the golf master, and he's like, I got you. Like, I actually, and I think even to go back to your question of like, what keeps me from being honest with God is me not seeing God like that. Seeing God as like the Olympic judge that's like, all right, let's keep score. Up, fail. Up, fail. Up, You're like, oh, I'm trying. Fail. And then it's like, oh, like, I don't want to be close to God. But to see God, like, to realize he's not intimidated by my mess, or like he's actually not shocked.
So good, JD.
That I'm failing, or he's not shocked that I want to get married and I'm frustrated that I'm not, and be like, he comes closer. He's like, he's like, hey, I understand. To me, that's a huge paradigm shift, because I'm like, oh, excuse me, Jesus, being messy over here, being human, and he's like, I'm human. Like, I get it. I understand what you're motivated. And I think that is some of the found in the Father, formed in family, is like, I guess just to speak to some of the students I lead, is I'm like, I'm not caught off guard by their mistakes. Right. And I think that can be some of the, like, what's different. It's like, actually, I'm not caught off guard by your mistake, because I've made that mistake. Yeah. It's not like, And I think that's some of the humanity of the family piece, that's like, hey, we're human. We know what it's like. And to feel some of that permission to, like, hey, let me share with you what helped me get out of that. Yes. And I think that's back to the
come to the table.
The advocacy, because I think a lot of times we can put on fig leaves and be like, I'm just going to pose. I'm just going to, like, pretend like this isn't what's going on for me for as long as possible, versus like, hey, this is what's going on for me. I have no way. I have no idea how to get out of this. This is what I get to. Because I was going to say, like, another thing for me personally is, like, I don't always trust myself. And that can kind of be a perpetuating cycle of like, I'm just not trustworthy. And the Lord's like, hey, I trust you. And it's like, it confronts the like, oh, okay. Like maybe like even what you were saying with the price tags, it's like what the Lord says about me confronts what I say about me.
Yeah, it is a confrontation.
And so I think some of that formed in the family and like, hey, can I help you? It's like, there's a better way. And I think as men, we can be afraid of like getting punished or getting caught. And for some of us there's some truth to that. But the healing journey is the Lord being like, that isn't who I am. Mm-hmm. And even for me being like, that isn't who I am. I was even thinking about that scripture that's like, he's like, how you as earthly fathers wouldn't give your children stones if they ask for bread. How much more does your Father? Yeah. And I'm like, man, it's the same process. Of like, okay, Lord, you want to give us bread is as we come honestly. And it's like, actually, here's me. And it's not pretty. And I think for our students, it's like, we're not shocked that you have that issue or you're burnt out or whatever, because it's same problem. But to feel the human element of like, we're not just going to pray about it. I'm not just going to pray for you. I'm actually going to tell you what I'm doing every day. I'm going to show you some keys that I do every day.
I'm going to walk with you.
I'm going to walk with you, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about like the shortcut. It's like, I think there can still be that like tension of like, I shouldn't be here in this mistake. And we're like, actually, we're not saying that. Yeah. That mistake is actually valid. That place you're at is valid. But I think there can be that shame or that like, oh, I should be, again, I'm here, but I should be here. And it's like, well, actually, look, we're here. We're going to start here. There's no shortcuts. There's no extra score you can add. That's the score you got. And we're going to be okay. Like the Father's going to come through and it's not going to go away quickly. It's going to be steady. And so just to feel some of that hard fought knowledge, it's like, this is, because I think even just again, to maybe wrap that thought up is like, there's things I'm just now learning. And I've had 10 years of the 18-inch journey. I'm like, that's humbling to be like, there's things I'm just now learning about my heart. So when I'm sitting across from somebody, I'm like, bro, I have nothing to prove to you. I'm learning too. Like there's no like mastery or sense of like, I got it. I'm like, these are my wounds. This is where I've messed up. This is where I failed. And just to feel that, like, for me, I'm like, I just want to open the door as wide as possible.
So much permission.
Yes, because I'm like, if I could save you time, this took me 10 years. If it takes you 1 year, like, to me, that's the kingdom of God. That's the, like, exponential growth.
Expedited growth.
Yeah. But just that advocacy piece of, like, I'm not impressed by your mistake. I'm not shocked. And I think for me that's a paradigm shift of like, oh, I need to hide that. It's like, actually, that's growth. That's healing waiting to happen.
Right.
Yeah. I think one of the scariest things to say as a man, I can say it now with a lot less fear than, a decade ago, but is I don't know how. And that would be the pressure system that and why we pose, why I would say I scored this when I really didn't. Yes. Because I thought like I'm supposed to know how to do this. Yeah. And what if we were created to be fathered. We were created to be led. We don't know because God put us in a family for others to teach us. And just to kind of bring this really amazing conversation to a close, our heart is to put this out there. So men that are in their early 20s, like you were when you guys stepped in and you pressed pause and you did this school, that they would feel empowered and feel challenged to go, oh wait, I'm actually worth slowing down and taking the time to grow. If Jesus himself needed like 30 years to grow before he succeeded, but like he needed 30 years to grow. You need a season to press pause and grow. And then also to inspire men that you're worth asking for help. You're worth saying, I don't know how to do this. Can someone teach me? And I've watched you guys lead so many men who come through these gates. You've taught them how to pray honest prayers. You've taught them how to not do life alone. You've taught them, like, even I love that this discipleship school, it's life on life. Like, truly, you might be behind a weed eater when you're here. You're going to be washing dishes. You're going to be doing life with us. And I mean, I've watched you, Jake, teach men how to use an axe for the first time.
Come on.
And like, because they didn't have a dad who ever taught them that. And
That's
just
right.
the empowerment that comes from doing something like that and
Yeah.
having a man
Tangible.
saying, you're worth like me teaching you how to do this.
You're worth time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the being formed in a family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm really hoping that this conversation inspires, and it could be high school students that come to our camp.
Praise God. Let's
Any
go.
men in their 20s, and
Little Jakes.
even for the
Little
men.
JDs.
And we've had doctors, lawyers, we've had postmen to our school,
Yeah, we
we've
have.
had builders,
Chemical engineers.
chemical engineers, yeah, and those that are halfway through their college career, going, why in the heck am I getting this degree?
Where am I going?
when I haven't slowed down enough to find out who I am?
Yeah.
Who've pressed pause on their college career and
Yes.
come away into the woods and said, I need to slow down and find out what's actually going on in my heart. This conversation would inspire those that are in their 20s to come away for a moment and slow down, be still, and know that He's God. So, and for the men's retreat that we're getting to host each year now,
Yes.
which we've had men of all ages come, husbands,
it's
fathers, men deep into their careers,
Yeah.
but are also like, I am burned out.
Yeah, I'm desperate for Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus is saying, all you who are weary and burdened, come to me, and I have rest for you.
Yeah.
Come, learn the way I do life.
Yeah.
I'm gentle, I'm humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So, we just send this out to
Yes.
whatever men are listening to it.
Come
on. We would love to have you come through these gates and be with us and be in process with us.
Yes.
As we do our 16th, 18th journey and
This is a
17th
company
and
of
18th.
healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, come, you weren't born
Yeah.
to do this alone. You were born to have brothers fighting for you.
Yeah.
So it's so good to have this conversation, guys.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.